we really love how stories evolve and unpack themselves. And you've had a cool experience being an entrepreneur, going into a huge growth phase now with Uber. And again, we always like to kind of start at the very beginning because it's like, how did that all kind of kick off?
So I think 2003 is where I was doing my undergraduate. And honestly, at that time, I did not know what I would be doing today, 20 years later. I did my undergraduate in electronics and communications. And at that time, I think computers was a thing, but somehow, a funny story, I thought computers was hard. Because when when I was doing my high school, I looked at these computer programming books and they were all these parentheses and start and stop. And like, how am I going to memorize all this stuff? So I don't want to do this stuff. So I ended up doing like electronics and electrical engineering. So went through that in undergraduate in India. And same thing, because all my peers were going to the US, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe why not? Let's try that. I ended up landing here and then did my master's in Oregon State and happened to do it in computer science and AI and machine learning. This was back in like 2007. Again, no real clue as to, okay, how will this get into the industry? What would this mean? But eventually, as I started working in a couple of startups, so I first joined a startup that was around 401k fund management, then went into a mobile security company, then joined Uber, at which point I switched to management, and then I've been doing that for quite a while now.
One thing that's really interesting about how you said the entrepreneurship, right, is again with you were obviously very technical, but I think what we've learned in sort of this experience is that even for those from a technical background, it's really helpful to understand, to take the perspective of the business, right? And so by being an entrepreneur, again, obviously you're not dealing with millions of dollars or thousands of employees, but did it teach you kind of like, okay, I got to really think through this other system here? It's not just the teaching, but I got to really learn how I can actually drive this.
100%. I think that's the main win that I would recommend students to seek, because one thing that's different from, say, back 20 years back to now is it's very easy to build these tech type products. So people jump into building products because that's more fun. Like, you'll build it up. Hey, I'm doing this app that can do A, B, and C. I can do this technique, building the software. But I think the faster you can get into the business side of things, where you actually get the first person to put $1, that'll start teaching you so many things, like taking rejections and, spicing up your storytelling and how do you brand your, marketing.
And how do you see the difference between the definition of management and leadership? Because I know there's several posts that you have about leadership and the keys of that. And so how have you thought that? And it was kind of cool because as I read through them, so you can almost see the development of the philosophy on your end. So I was just maybe hoping you could share a few of those as well.
Management is the machinery, I would say. Like, you have to have processes and protocols and how you operate, standard operating procedure that you will have to develop for yourself. It's, at least in tech, it's still not fully mature, I would say, in terms of how all these stuff is done, whether it's tracking, risk mitigation. So you have to have a process and a framework that you build for yourself. And that's what I call management. You make the train go. Leadership is, at least the way I understand and internalize, is really, yes, the train can run. Yes, the train can run fast, but what direction are you going to take that towards? Second, are the people who are driving that wanting to go there? How are you motivating them? How are you making them to be more innovative? So you really have to bring in the leadership aspects of it, which is a little bit more of a meta concept. It's not the nuts and bolts, which is what I categorize as management techniques, management frameworks. And leadership is a little bit more around the why, the what, and not the how specifically. And the why and the what go into motivation, direction setting, providing opportunities, actually seeing people grow multiple, folds as you help them. So there's a lot more nuanced aspects about leadership for me.
Well, great. And then just to wrap us up, if you had to look back on it today, giving advice to students, would there be one thing you would over-index on while in school? It could be more classes, it could be talk with your professors, it could be go out a few more times, whatever that would be. But I think that's a really interesting question to close with.
Yeah, I would say this. I'm sure you've heard 1,000 times, but learn to be curious, find a problem and solve it. Doesn't matter how big, small. Once you do enough of it, I'm sure there's always benefit of learning that skill set of finding a problem and solving a problem. That comes in handy everywhere. So whether it's within the context of your school's operations or outside, doesn't matter.